Well, good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. My name is Philip Endersby, and I am your MC for today, for today's meeting of the Rotary Club of Melbourne. We would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri and the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation, and also pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all Indigenous Australians present today. Please note that most microphones have been muted for the duration of the presentation. Accolades, comments and questions can be posted via the Zoom chat function throughout the presentation. Thanks today will be given by past President Robert Fisher, followed by the Loyal Toast presented by President Marion McLeod. Please ensure your glass or another appropriate vessel is charged. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Today we remember with respect and admiration the extraordinary life and influence of Charter member and past President of Rotary Melbourne, General Sir John Monash. This year's Monash Medal will be presented today online for the first time to a worthy recipient, Jillian Segal, from whom we look forward to hearing later in the meeting. You will hardly need to be reminded that Monash is considered one of the First World War's outstanding commanders. From humble beginnings, he overcame prejudice to achieve so much in so many fields: engineering, the military, the law, business, and public service. As a leader, he was inspirational, a meticulous planner, innovative, empathetic, organized, engaging, unselfish, clear thinking, and able to turn vision into reality. Would that we displayed just some of these characteristics in our daily lives. Certainly what we can learn from Monash in our current predicament is that with determination, it is possible to overcome adversity. He once said, "Equip yourself for life, not solely for your own benefit, but for the benefit of the whole community." That's a great fit for us as fellow Rotarians. So for the great work of Rotary and the friendship we enjoy through it, we give thanks.
Thank you, Robert. Rotarians and guests, a toast to Australia and Rotary International. Australia, Rotary International. So members, visitors and guests, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to our 6th meeting of the Rotary year, the 4,853rd in our club's 99-year history, and the 21st club meeting which has been conducted in the online format. Today we award the 11th Monash Medal, recognising the service and integrity of Sir John Monash, our 2nd President, and it's an honour to welcome the 2020 recipient, Jillian Segal. Jillian will be more formally introduced by Peter Davis, Chair of the club's 0808 Committee, later in the programme. On this noteworthy day, we also have guests Michael Bennett, who's the great-grandson of Sir John Monash, Anne-Marie Rolls, CEO at General Sir John Monash Foundation, and last year's awardee, Major General Jim Barry, and past recipients. Would you please join me in making all these guests and all our other visitors to the club today welcome.
Marion, you're muted.
I think you're muted.
Oh my goodness, did you hear any of that?
No.
I might start again. So Today we are awarding the 11th Monash Medal, recognising the service and integrity of Sir John Monash, our second president. It is an honour to welcome the 2020 recipient, Jillian Segal. Jillian will be more formally introduced by Peter Davis, the chair of the club's 0808 committee later in the programme. And my apologies for being muted before. On this noteworthy day, we also have guests Michael Bennett, who's the great-grandson of Sir John Monash, Anne-Marie Rolls, the CEO of General Sir John Monash Foundation, and last year's awardee, Major General Jim Barry, and some past recipients. Would you please join me in making all of these guests and all other visitors to the club today welcome. So we have another vignette to share with you. This one today is on our sister clubs, courtesy of all the work that Chris Wong has done over the many years forging these relationships.
Rotary Melbourne has a very strong tradition of promoting the internationality of Rotary. The City of Melbourne and the club have agreed that wherever the city has a sister city, we should have a sister Rotary club. There are 5 clubs in this category. They are Boston, Osaka, Milan, St. Petersburg, and ourselves. Boston and Osaka were our first 2 international sister cities, with Osaka being established in 1997. In 2015, Milan was established, followed by St. Petersburg in 2017. As Milan and St. Petersburg are relatively new sister clubs, we are currently seeking common links. My experience in Milan in 2015 was breathtaking. I had the honour of signing our sister club agreement, standing in for past President Peter Rogers. The ceremony was in a 17th century palace where the club conducts its meetings. My co-signatory was President Carlos Loy, a member of the Pirelli rubber family. Dorothy Gilmore was the first to make contact with the Rotary Club of St. Petersburg. Let me set the scene, and I quote, "Meeting time, 6:30 p.m. on a cold March evening in 2017. The taxi dropped me off at the address on the riverbank. Dark, snowing, not a soul in sight, no lights anywhere, no rotary wheel, just a couple of old boats. One boat had a light on the upper deck. Only way onto the boat was to walk an old swinging gangplank in the dark. I remember thinking if I slid off into the water, no one would know what would have happened to me. There was a door. I gently pushed it, and voila, a man stood there and grunted and pointed up some stairs. What a memorable, fantastic Rotary meeting. In fact, one of the last meetings of the club on the boat, as the boat was to be towed into the ocean and sunk. I received yearly greetings from Nikolai Lotov, and I have provided the club assistance in creating a kids' helpline in St. Petersburg. We are having difficulty connecting with Rotary Boston, so if any of you are visiting Boston and visit the club, we'd be most grateful for any assistance and contacts you can provide. Our strongest relationship is with Osaka. As you can see, we had quite a few projects from us with Osaka, the first being with the City of Melbourne in October 2008, the Futures Leaders Exchange, where young people got together and exchanged common interests. This project was funded by both cities and both clubs. We also had a great fellowship, Ask Sue McCarthy, Trevor Nink or Peter Abotomy, in particular sweeping the bridge ceremony, our visit to the hot springs, where in true Japanese custom, we had to fully derobe, and the very interesting Yamasaki distillery. In 2010, Osaka provided a grant of $10,000 to assist with solar power for our club's Donaghey Homelands project in northeast Arnhem Land. And in 2012, we visited Osaka to celebrate their 90th birthday, with great hospitality. One of the highlights being President Clive Weeks and President-elect Keith McNeil really enjoying karaoke with their rendition of My Way. Ask Osaka has also contributed to our water project in Loak, Lubang Island in the Philippines in 2014. And as you can see from the photo, with Osaka Rotarian Shinji Higuchi. In 2022, the Rotary Club of Osaka will be celebrating its centenary. I can assure you of great experience. Please contact me if you are interested to come along. It'll be a great experience. Also, from our experience, we have found that direct contact is best. Therefore, if you are travelling to any of our sister cities, please attend a meeting, make contact, and develop personal relationships and enjoy the fellowship.
Thank you for that, Chris. Our next reflection on some key Rotary moments as we travel through our 100th anniversary year. We know a lot about Sir John Monash in our club, so on a day when we celebrate the Monash Medal, it was tricky to find something that our club might not know. As Robert's highlighted, we know of his engineering successes, his war experience, his legacy and his name. So what might we not know? We know he was the second president of this club, and some items of further significance include that he learned from his mistakes and he admitted that any plan was better than none. His home was a gathering place for music lovers. Then in taking on the role of the club, he hesitated, identifying his own limitations, saying he feared being unable to render punctual and regular attendances at the various meetings due to an already personal overload. A man of some humility. So now to our notices. Our AGM, the date of the Rotary Club of Melbourne's annual general meeting, has now been fixed as the 18th of November 2020. Formal notices will be issued in due course. The setting of that date of the AGM meeting triggers a series of events, which starts with the forming of the President's Nominating Committee. The Nominating Committee consists of 9 members of the club, one of whom is the President. One is the President-elect, Reg Smith. 2 are the most recent past presidents available. 2 are board-elected members, and there are 3 that are elected by the membership. I'm pleased to announce that the board has confirmed the 2 past presidents to serve on the Nominating Committee, our immediate past president, Kevin Sheehan, and past president, Robert Fisher. And the board-appointed members are vice presidents, Pam Brown and Chris Stillwell. So I now call for nominations for the 3 candidates elected by the members. The nominations can be made by any number, by any member in writing, with each nomination being signed by the nominator and another member. And they must carry the acceptance of nominations signed by the member nominated. No past president is eligible for nomination by the members for any of the 3 vacancies. No member who was twice accepted for the membership on the Nominating Committee is eligible for service in any subsequent year except as a presidential officer. So nominations need to be made within 3 weeks. So that's by 2:10 on Wednesday, the 26th of August. And nomination forms and any questions that you might have should be directed to the Honorary Secretary, Russell Board. And now to the Rotary Club of Kakinada and their Friendship Day. The Rotary Club of Kakinada invited us to present on our 100th anniversary celebrations and to share with them the projects of our club in this our 100 year. They were most hospitable and very welcoming and keen to hear of our projects. Given that there were well over 100 in attendance, I wasn't able to see if anybody else from our club joined me at 11 o'clock last Thursday evening. But if you did, it was a lovely evening. Next, our member subs. They're now due. If you haven't already done so, please make sure that you've paid your membership subs for 2020-21. They were invoiced on the 30th of June and they're due at the end of July. So if you need another copy of your invoice, just contact Joe. And a reminder of the weekly coffee morning Zoom meetings. They continue at 10:30 each Friday. And unfortunately, I'm unable to attend this week, but you are in the welcoming hands of Pam Brown, who along with Sharon Johnson will host you, and the details are all in the bulletin. We're also using this coffee morning to allow newer members to test and play with the technical side of Zoom, which allows us all to play and upskill in Zoom. And we're continuing to offer some training in the technology. So if anyone has an interest, please contact Reg Smith. Reg is very keen to be able to hand over the reins that he's carried so brilliantly for the last 6 months. And our Fighting Fund, a reminder that each week, in lieu of paying for your lunch, we encourage you to continue to support the Fighting Fund. And there's always a link in the weekly bulletin. And finally, to our holiday snaps. In future, we intend to close the meeting with some of your holiday snaps. And to keep up your spirits until you go traveling again, Jillian has already shared her picture of the Bahamas in her shop behind her today. So if you could each send in a special photo to Joe, and we'll put that to music to end our meetings. We also encourage you to send in some of your favorite music, and Judy and Ross Scholes have provided us both with some lovely music for next week and an amazing photograph. Not the one that got away is all I'll say, so you'll need to join us next week to see that one. It's now my great pleasure to hand over this meeting to today's chairman, Peter Davis.
Thank you, President Marion. I'd like to start with welcoming our 2019 Monash medalist, Major General Jim Barry. Thanks for attending, Jim. It's a pleasure to have you. Also, hopefully we have on board Sir John Monash's great-grandson, Michael Bennett. Welcome, Michael. Sir John was our founding member in 2021 and then president of this club in 2022-23. On the 5th anniversary of the Battle of Amiens, 8 August 1923, he was asked to say a few words to our club. The minutes record his brief commentary on the extraordinary outcome of his planning and execution, leading to the end of the war in less than 100 days from 0808. His contribution to Victoria, Australia, and the world community is legion. His counsel to all, especially to students, was adopt as your fundamental creed that you equip yourself for life, not solely for your own benefit, but for the benefit of the whole community. He is our greatest Australian on any measure. Our club has, since 2010, awarded the Monash Medal each year to an outstanding Australian for his or her contribution to the Australian community and beyond. The criteria are leadership, integrity, and service, key values of Sir John Monash and core values of Rotary. It is my pleasure and my duty today to assist in Rotary Melbourne awarding the 2020 Monash Medal to Jillian Segal. Jillian is a professional company director with a legal and regulatory background and private and public sector experience. Jillian is a chair of the Sir John Monash Foundation, having been an appointed chair in 2010, taking over from General Sir Peter Cosgrove. Currently, she is also a director of Robobank Australia Limited, chair of the Australia-Israel Chamber of Commerce, chair of the Independent Parliamentary Expenses Authority, a director of the Garvan Institute of Medical Research, the Gatton Institute of Public Policy, and a trustee of the Sydney Opera House Trust. Jillian is president of the Executive Council of Australian Jewellery. Amongst her previous appointments, she was director of ASX and National Australia Bank Limited, and a member of the Federal Government's Remuneration Tribunal. Jillian graduated with a Bachelor of Laws from University of New South Wales and has a Master's from Harvard University. Jillian was awarded a Centenary Medal in 2003 for services to society through business leadership and appointed a member of the Order of Australia in 2005. And in January 2019, she was awarded an Officer of the Order of Australia for service to the banking and financial regulation sectors, to not-for-profit organisations, and to women. Jillian is also a Fellow of the Australian Institute of Company Directors and a member of CEW. I'd now like to call on President Marion to read out the citation to Jillian.
General Sir John Monash is the most significant Australian for his professional, military and community leadership and service before, during and after World War I. Leadership, integrity and service are core values of Rotary, integral in the life of Sir John Monash, and are the criteria for selecting the Monash Medal recipient. This year, the Monash Medal is awarded to Jillian Segal, AO, for her outstanding leadership, integrity and service to the public sector, business leadership and philanthropy. Congratulations, Jillian, and perhaps you could just, have you got your medal there? You could hold up for a memory photo.
I do.
Oh, lovely. Our bulletin editor will be right on to taking a picture there. Thank you. Can you congratulate Jillian? Over to you, Jillian.
Thank you very much, President Marion, and thank you also, Peter, for your very kind introduction. Could I also please adopt the acknowledgement of country that has already been given, and also acknowledge some of the special guests here this afternoon. Anne-Marie Rolls, my colleague and CEO at the General Sir John Monash Foundation, Michael Bennett, a great friend of the Foundation's, and acknowledge Major General Jim Barry. Lovely to see you on the screen, Jim. I'm sorry I'm not seeing any of you, and there, hi Michael. I'm not seeing any of you in person, but thank you so much for attending and for joining us in this tribute to General Monash, who we also love and respect. And I really am most honoured by this. We're very privileged to be in receipt of a medal named after one of my really great heroes. As everyone has already noted, not only did General Monash have a close association with the Rotary Club itself of Melbourne, but more relevantly, and this is what I'd like to talk about today, although it's already been a little summarised by Robert Fisher, but it's the values that are the community values of Rotary, mirroring those of General Monash, which I believe are the values that I also hold dear, and that the General Sir John Monash Foundation and my involvement with it aim to carry on. And I want to talk to you a little bit today about the General Sir John Monash Foundation, because I'm so many of you will know about General Monash and many of the other legacies that have been erected to his memory, whether it's a university or a highway or statues in all sorts of important places. But this, the foundation, is a tribute and a legacy in the form of human capital rather than any building. And it's that human capital of investing in people that I believe General Monash would be extremely proud of. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the foundation and then illustrate some of these values that we all hold dear through a few vignettes, stories about some of our scholars. So the foundation itself was established by the founding council, which was chaired by General Peter Gratian in 2001. And in 2002, the federal government was convinced that this was a good thing to try for Australia to have its own scholarship organisation for postgraduate study. And it committed $5.1 million to fund 32 scholarships. And the foundation was on its way. So the inaugural state and territory selection panels were established in 2003, which was the beginning of a very rigorous selection process that we still carry on today and think is an absolute integral part of our brand. And the first 8 scholarships were awarded for study in 2004. And I joined the board in 2008, sitting on, for a year before then, on the selection panel. And I was so excited to see the calibre of the young people that then I was convinced to come onto the board by Peter Cosgrove. And then when he stepped down in 2010, I became chair. And at that stage, the foundation had awarded 40 scholarships. And today, I'm proud to say we have awarded 2,002, with the number growing each year and probably at about 15 to 20 each year. And we just are busy going through the selection process for the 2021 scholars. And as I think I was saying to some of you earlier, it's amazing to see not only the caliber, but also the increasing number of applicants. And we have built our funding with further support from the federal government and from the states of New South Wales and Victoria, from the university sector with 20 universities joining together to fund a scholar or two each year, corporate supporters and generous private philanthropists and foundations. And I like to say that we are truly supported by civil society, which is something that John Monash would have appreciated. The initial endowment has grown over 10 times, and we have a long-term ambition to build an endowment which will ensure the foundation's perpetuity. The character, interests, and achievements of General Monash continue to underpin the qualities and potential we look for in the individuals we award the scholarship to, reflecting his own multiple talents. So, as we've discussed already, as a strategic military leader, an engineer, a scholar in the arts and law, broad interests in music, literature, nature, and languages, as well as his deep commitment, as we've already quoted, that you should equip yourself not for your own benefit, but for the benefit of the whole community. And that was obviously important in General Monash's time, but when we look at what he built in his time, it's that legacy of values which we seek to imbue in our leaders for the future. And clearly they are values and attributes that we will need as we try and work our way through this pandemic. So he was, General Monash was an outstanding citizen soldier, and as we've heard, he was a true innovator in his strategic planning, battle planning as exemplified in the Battle of Lamel, which, although, as we know, was only a 93-minute battle, was possibly the one battle Monash himself was most proud of, and which served as a morale boost. But of course, it was the Battle of Amiens, where Monash and Sir Arthur Currie from Canada planned the battle that really was the Black Day of the German army, as quoted by Ludendorff. So I had the privilege of visiting these battlegrounds in 2018 for the centenary commemorations. Villiers Bretonneux Military Cemetery, the Australian National Cemetery, as well as, of course, the then very newly opened Sir John Monash Centre. And for any of you who can, in the future, when we are allowed to travel, visit that centre, can I commend it to you as an amazing place where actual and recreated video footage of the battles take you and transport you to that time, and you can experience in almost real life what happened. So not only as a strategic battle planner, but as someone who cared for his troops, General Monash showed an understanding of the need for intense training and education for life after the war. And this comes across quite clearly in his own account of the victories in France and his letters home to his wife and daughter. And it's these values of humanity that led him to later become a much loved and respected civic leader. And these are the values and qualities we look for in our John Monash scholars. And as I've said, no time is more important than today, when we need the flexibility, the innovation, and the resilience and commitment to community in our leaders than we need now. So we are on the cusp ourselves of our 20th year. Congratulations to Rotary on their 100th year. And I believe General Monash would be very proud of these scholars who carry his name. They are themselves a collegiate community, representing a broad diversity coming from different backgrounds and cultures, with expertise across the full range from medical sciences, engineering, law, economics, defense, education, and the arts, particularly music. But they have in common the qualities of leadership and commitment to improve the world we all live in. So I'm going to just give you a glimpse into some of the scholars, and because I would like us all to understand that these scholars carry Monash's name, and they're all proud to carry his name, and they will form the leadership cadre of Australia in years already. We are seeing some of those showing leadership today, but they will be the leaders of the future, and they will all be John Monash scholars. So let me give you an example of a few who are working in the field dealing with coronavirus, because that is the field of greatest challenge today. And like Monash rose to the challenge of his time, these are rising to the challenge of today. So the 2009 scholar, Dr. Mark Shembry, who's a graduate from the University of Sydney with an honours degree in veterinary science, he has a master in public health that we funded to go to Harvard, where he went to Harvard University. And he also has a doctor of medicine from the University of Sydney, and now works as a senior resident medical officer at the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital in Sydney, as well as lecturing at the Sydney University Veterinarian School. But he has a unique experience as an equine veterinarian and worked during the horse flu pandemic in Australia in 2007, where, of course, as you might recall, the virus jumped from the horse to the human. So he's been a doctor on the front line treating COVID-19 patients in Sydney, and also played a vital role in advising the New South Wales Health Minister in relation to the issues of viruses moving from animal to human populations. The engineer and inventor, Dr. Harrison Steele, was a 2016 scholar, and he has just completed his PhD at Oxford, where he has worked on 2 groundbreaking projects to combat the spread of COVID-19. He's part of a team of scientists at Oxford University who have developed an easy-to-use COVID-19 detection test that actually gives a result in half an hour, which will prove extremely useful as we, I think, discover that we will need tests before getting on planes, before entering various countries, etc., as communities open up. He is also part of an interdisciplinary team leading the electrical design of a low-cost prototype ventilator that can be quickly assembled in small labs or workshops to allow smaller communities to develop these ventilators. And 2013 scholar Dr. Alexandra Phelan is a public health lawyer and pandemic expert who's become a commentator world over, commenting on the worldwide response to the pandemic. Dr. Laura Diamond is a 2015 scholar, currently a postdoctoral researcher in Southampton, specializing in digital technology. And she has been working with a team creating an open source air purifier respirator to be used by frontline workers. Andrew Hudson, a 2005 scholar, is the executive director of Crisis Action, which builds global collective action to protect vulnerable civilians from war. And in a bid to deal with COVID-19 around the world, the UN Secretary General has called for a global ceasefire so that countries that are in the midst of a great conflict can at least deal with the pandemic. And they have endorsed close to supporting the call for ceasefire that Crisis Action has initiated. Joe Gattis is an engineer and a 2010 scholar who leads the Folded Structures Laboratory in Queensland, which has developed a simple origami face shield made out of using simple plastic that is being used on the front line. So there we are, a whole range of multidisciplinary scholars who have turned their scholarship and their skills into the service that is now required to deal with COVID-19. Of course, when the pandemic is over, they will go back to their original studies, but I suppose they are already demonstrating not only commitment to community, but the flexibility, adaptation, and innovation that General Monash exhibited in the time of war. We also have quite a few scholars who have come to us from the military and who continue to serve in the military. And I thought you might be interested to understand how they are carrying out General Monash's legacy, but within the military. So Roger Noble, who was a 2008 scholar, was perhaps our first member of the military to receive a John Monash Scholarship. And indeed, that was the year that I sat on the selection panel and was involved in choosing him for a scholarship. He completed his Master of International Public Policy at Johns Hopkins in 2009 with a focus on strategy and conflict management. And after his studies, he was promoted to brigadier and has completed appointments as the commander of the 3rd Brigade, director of Special Operations Capability and Special Operations Command, Director General Land Development, Capability Development Group, and then Major General in November 2016, deployed with the US 101st Airborne Division as Deputy Coalition Land Force Commander in Iraq, where he was effectively second in command in the international fight against IS in Iraq. And then he was assigned as Deputy Commander, US Army Pacific, from March 2017 to January 2019, which actually saw him follow in the unique footsteps of John Monash, because he was an Australian commanding US troops. Major General Noble was appointed Deputy Chief of Joint Operations in December 2018, and in October 2019 commenced his current appointment as Head Military Strategic Commitments. So there we are. We have our first scholar in 2018 from the military has really had a spectacular career within the military, following in Monash's footsteps to some extent. Flight Lieutenant Dr. Alex Barbaro was a 2013 scholar, and he's completed a Master's of Space Engineering and has been come back to Australia and seconded to the military, to the Ministry of Defence. 2012 Scholar Squadron Leader Christopher Lowe is an aerospace engineer currently working in the space industry, and he completed a Master of Aeronautics and Astronautics at MIT, looking at the integration of unmanned aircraft into civil airspace. He was a member of the Royal Australian Air Force in Kandahar in Afghanistan, providing communication systems for unmanned aircraft. Kevin Wilson was a 2013 scholar, and he undertook his PhD in economics at Cambridge. And prior to his scholarship, he was an officer in the Royal Australian Air Force for 10 years, serving in Afghanistan and the Middle East. And for all our scholars, we look not only for their leadership potential and the fact that they are doing something or intending to do something worthwhile for community, but already what they have contributed. And someone like Kevin founded Soldier On, an Australian charity supporting veterans wounded in operations. And we have a current military scholar, 2018 scholar, Major Nathan Johnson, who's undertaking his PhD at Arizona University, researching cybersecurity and leading the technical development of cyber and electronic technology in the future, we hope, for the Army. We also have other scholars who are not in the Army, but working with Defence, like the 2016 scholar Catherine Manstead, who's a senior advisor for public policy at the ANU's Crawford School of Public Policy and co-hosts the National Security podcast. We have engineers, 2013 scholar Jillian Kilby, who's an engineer and an entrepreneur and has founded The Exchange, which is located at a former historic post office and telephone exchange in Dubbo, which she has transformed into a community hub and co-working space. And she herself is an engineer working on all sorts of interesting projects for local and national and state governments. We have artistic and cultural scholars. Just want to tell you about a couple of them, or at least one in particular, who follows in John Monash's footsteps as a great lover of music. Michael Grebley from 2016, he completed a Master of Music Composition at the New England Conservatory of Music. And I'm sure John Monash would have loved meeting him, because not only did Michael graduate with an engineering degree, but then a Bachelor of Music, and now he is a composer and has been awarded grants by the Australia Council for composing. So we have scholars in education, we have scholars in all sorts of other fields, and I won't go into that. But I just want to say three more things about our scholars. The first is that what started as a scholarship organisation really has morphed into a scholarship and leadership organisation, and many others have followed in recognising the importance, the brilliance and the contribution of our scholars, and have awarded them further awards or further investments. So we feel really rather chuffed in the choice of scholars that we have made. So just even recently, 2007 John Monash scholar Dr. Owen Six has been named a couple of months ago an inaugural Snow Fellow from the Snow Foundation with an $8 million award for innovative medical research. Other scholars, Mark Dawson, who's a 2006 scholar, who's a researcher at the Peter Mac, Davis McCarthy, a 2011 scholar, and 2015 scholar Phoebe Williams have all been awarded major National Health and Medical Research Council grants to further their research and their work. So across so many fields, the scholars are having an impact, showing courage and leadership, as I've said. But in addition, what they are doing, which I think makes us very proud and would have made Monash proud and should make all of Rotary proud, is that they've dedicated a lot of their time to their own community, not only the general community, but the fellow scholars. So that we have formed a scholar advisory committee, which organises virtual catch-ups, in-person catch-ups in different jurisdictions when that's been allowed before the pandemic. And we host global symposia, where fortunately we held one in December 2019 before our world changed, where 73 scholars from around the world came together to talk and to connect and to mentor each other and to facilitate collaborative projects. And some of our scholars have indeed, in mentioning further investment in them, been awarded Rotary grants. Ida Whiteman was awarded a Rotary Global grant in 2016, William Mitchell in 2019, and Eva McKinley in 2020 received the Rotary Peace Fellowship. So thank you also to Rotary for supporting our scholars and enabling them to continue their leadership journey. So education, collaboration and research essential to providing and helping Australia work through its transformations that we are going through. A lot of uncertainty at this time and at this point in time, the mission of the Foundation continues to be the same, to support these scholars, to enable them to develop their potential and to become future leaders that we are all not only proud of, but see the benefit to the nation of. And I feel very fortunate to have been chair of the foundation, as I have, and to have seen it grow and prosper, and to have seen so many wonderful volunteers. And we've heard a couple today who are members of our panels in selecting the scholars. So can I thank everyone who has contributed to the foundation, not only governments and donors, but the executive and Anne-Marie Rolls who's with us, and those on our panels. I've been fortunate with a number of other not-for-profit organisations that I'm involved with that you have heard to also feel that I am pursuing similar ideals. The Garvan Institute of Medical Research, which is focused on groundbreaking genomic and autoimmune research, is one that I have also been involved with for over a decade, as well as the Opera House, which hosts not only great performing arts, but also the stories that reflect our culture. I have been involved with the Australian War Memorial, and I was pleased to say I was there in the period where they were renewing their World War I galleries and covered Monash's rightful place as a great military leader. So in summary and in conclusion, I would just like to reference someone who was a great admirer of General Monash and who was a great man himself, the late Tim Fisher, who incidentally has been commemorated by the federal government by a named and perpetual scholarship in his name through the John Monash Foundation, which he would have been delighted about, because of course he waged a very strong campaign to have Monash elevated in rank. He wrote a book on Maestro John Monash, and the Honourable Josh Frydenberg, our current treasurer, speaks of General Monash in that book, in the foreword to that book, as a shining light, a man of exceptional talents and achievements, but one who saw those achievements as really reflecting all the men and women who served. And the foundation that I've tried to summarize a little for you today aims to keep this shining light bright, to not only honor those who've served and honor General Monash and what he achieved 100 years ago, but to maintain the mission of improving our community and indeed the world. So thank you again for this honor in the name of the General who inspires us, or all of us today, and thank you very much for all the work that you do. I congratulate you on all that you contribute to our community, and we're very blessed to have so many who serve. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jillian. Jillian has agreed to answer some questions, and some questions have been submitted, and I will start those now if you're ready, Jillian.
Sure.
Robert Fisher, past president, I think I know the thinking behind this question, but he asks, have the efforts to have Sir John Monash elevated posthumously to the rank of Field Marshal been given up?
Well, that's a very good question. I think largely they have, with the passing of Fish. The sort of main proponent of it, I suppose, was Tim Fisher, and with his energy and drive, it gained some momentum. I think there was a possibility that it could have been revived with a new Prime Minister in the form of Morrison. But I think COVID has probably completely overwhelmed and intervened, and it might be quite a few years before that is revisited, unless an organisation like Rotary takes it up. It has to be taken up, I think, at a grassroots level for the government, and I believe the discretion is really in the Prime Minister and the government, but it needs to come from the grassroots.
Thank you. Reg Smith asks, or he first of all says, Jillian, it's our honour to be making this award to you. We have right now a crisis that call for the best from our leaders. Do you see parallels now from the response of national and state leaders to the current crisis?
Well, yes. I mean, I think that they have rallied round, and I do think that the Prime Minister, in creating a national cabinet, has responded in a very strong way, and the leaders of the states, doesn't matter what political party they come from, have come together. I think that it's very hard to maintain that combined leadership group as the states have differed in their, not response, but in the virus's spread. And you have some states where basically they can follow the pathway to opening up, and some states like Victoria now have to be locked down. And that's causing a little bit of a friction and breakdown in that collegiality as states close borders. But I think it's been a very collective response. And I think we're seeing that with the government wherever needed, offering support, offering not only financial support, but military support, and seeing the military go in to assist in so many of these duties. And we're not seeing a lot of it, but so much of the work in the health system is now also being assisted by the military, by military doctors and military nurses going in. And so I think we have pulled together very much as a country at a leadership level. And, in terms of the military, the political and the medical facility, people coming together. And it's been a hard balance, hasn't it, to achieve between keeping the economy going and keeping the country safe.
From President Marion, Marion says, Sir John Monash was an innovator. What innovations have you seen in the current circumstances that have surprised you and you can see as beneficial for society going forward?
Well, I think in a technical sense, some of the innovations that have surprised me have been some of them, those that I've referred to, where we have found ourselves as a country flat-footed, so to speak, when it came to necessary equipment to deal with this, whether they were respirators, whether they were face masks, whether they were tests. And so much of that equipment came from overseas. In particular, the supply chain was very poor. So we've seen a lot of innovation, whether it was sanitizers that you would have seen, gin factories turning into sanitizing factories and so on. And some of the innovation in terms of, ways in which to make this equipment cheaply and easily, and to open it up and share the IP so that it can be made overseas in Africa and in other smaller communities. So I think that seeing that sort of international sharing of IP in relation to equipment has been wonderful. Through the Garvan, I have seen quite a lot of the medical research that's being done, both locally. So research that was focused on the immune system has pivoted to look at treatment options for COVID, because actually COVID, they have now decided, is not just a respiratory disease, but is a disease of an immune response. People who die actually die from the immune response rather than just the disease itself. So all of that research is being shared both nationally and internationally. And I think that sharing in the medical community is something that hasn't always happened, but now even new initiatives, peer review articles that would have been peer-reviewed articles are being shared online before they're even peer-reviewed, just to get the information out there. And so that is very exciting and represents, innovation in a sort of technical medical research sense that I have found very inspiring.
I have a question from Bernie McIntosh. Jillian, you are clearly inspired by the works of Sir John Monash and also the scholarship awardees of the Foundation. But who inspired you at earlier stages of your career?
Ah, interesting question. I want to say John Monash, of course, but I suppose I was really first inspired by my own parents, who were born and lived in South Africa, and then really when Sharpeville, which was an event in South Africa where there was a shooting, a massacre, just decided that they could not live in that country any longer. They could not do anything about the apartheid regime, just decided to emigrate to Australia and to pack up everything and leave everything behind and start afresh. And I think seeing your parents start afresh in a new country and build a life from nothing is a very inspiring thing. And that's probably where I first was inspired.
Thank you, Jillian. Thank you for your most insightful and enjoyable address. I certainly enjoyed it, and I'm sure everybody else did. Thank you again for agreeing to be our Monash medalist for 2020. As a medalist, you have an open invitation to attend any of our meetings, especially when we're awarding Monash medals in the future. And I certainly hope that you are able to make one of those meetings where I'm sure I speak for everybody in saying that I would really love to meet you in person, and again congratulate you on being our Monash medalist for 2020. I'd now like to pass the meeting over to Marion to conclude the meeting for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to our MC, Phil Endersby, Robert Fisher for his thanks, and to Chairperson Peter Davis, and especially to our guest speaker, Jillian Segal. Thank you also to all our members, visitors and guests for attending, and a quick reminder to send in that favourite holiday snap. All that's left for me to do is to give you a reminder that next week's meeting, we will be having an evening meeting, and our guest speaker will be Kerry Q, author, humorist, mathematician and journalist, speaking on Life Wasn't Supposed to Be Serious. Timely both for the timing and the topic. So please join us now as I close the meeting with some of the club snaps and some lovely music that was played by our colleague David Cram in Better Times. Please enjoy, and in the meantime, stay safe and spread kindness.
Thank you.